If we're going to believe that we're going to eventually get to general AI or towards it, I think that this is actually one of the breakthroughs that we needed.
Welcome to How AI Happens, a podcast where experts explain their work at the cutting edge of artificial intelligence. You'll hear from AI researchers, data scientists, and machine learning engineers as they get technical about the most exciting developments in their field and the challenges they're facing along the way. I'm your host, Rob Stevenson, and we're about to learn how AI happens. My guest today on How AI Happens has some serious tech chops, primarily, although not exclusively, in AI. Her work in search and search engines is in no small part responsible, I don't think it's too hyperbolic to say, for the way Google is working today. She founded a clustering-based search engine called Cool, another history-based one that was the first approach to searching the internet Wayback Machine. A former VP of engineering over at Google, and now she is the founder and managing partner at Gradient Ventures, which she will tell you all about here today. AnnapPatterson, welcome to the podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing very well. How are you doing?
I am great. No one ever asks. Thank you for asking. I'm doing great and excited to be talking to you. There's so much to go into in your background. I guess I'll kick it over to you to add some color commentary. Would you mind just sharing a little bit about your background? But we can get to the point where you decided, you know what, I want to found Gradient Ventures. I want to start working with companies who are going to be bringing AI tech to market.
Yeah, I've founded a number of companies, and we started an AI division in Google in about 2014. And I found it really interesting and felt it was an up and coming space. And when we started doing research in the area, I thought, you know what? Why don't we start to see what startups are in the area? And so in 2015, I did not see a lot of startups in AI. And so in 2016, I pitched that we started a seed fund to try to kind of make AI happen and bring more AI companies to bear. Now it looks prescient, but at the time, object of ridicule and jest.
An object of ridicule and jest, was that because it was viewed as some sort of like pie in the sky, sci-fi, futuristic mumbo jumbo, or what was the attitude at the time?
That we were in an AI winter. Was AI going to happen? Was the next wave going to happen? Or was it going to stay unpopular?
Well, it's a good job you didn't listen to the haters, Anna. What gave you the certainty that they were all wrong?
Actually, it was more of a timing thing of, how long AI winters last and how the ebb and flow of popular and unpopular technologies. And also I saw the commitment of my peers to advancing the state of the art in research and felt that a bunch of breakthroughs were right around the corner. And I guess I turned out to be right. I could have turned out to be wrong.
Yeah, you certainly did turn out to be right. When you say AI winter, how would you compare or contrast that to the standard hype cycles that exist? Or would you contrast it?
Yeah, usually they overpromise and underdeliver, and then they fall out of favor. And so when that hype cycle happens where it's overhyped and falls out of favor, then generally that's, kind of what's called a winter, because people think, that didn't really pan out. But I've actually lived through two other hype cycles. I think that we really underestimated the amount the web was going to change society. And so I think looking back on it, the web was underhyped. And I think we underestimated mobile and how much mobile and cell phones were going to change society. So looking back on it, I thought it was underhyped. So no matter how hyped you think AI is now, I think that we're underestimating its change.
When you say it falls out of favor, do you mean with other venture capital firms, with investors writ large? Who are the people that are sort of anointing or non-anointing the next paradigm in this case?
I think it often happens with researchers. It happens in industry. Like, did it deliver on industry-changing technology? Did researchers have breakthroughs that were interesting? Were they able to continue to get funding in the area? Were the grad students excited? Were researchers excited? Were entrepreneurs excited? And so when there's a lot of hype and then not as many breakthroughs or not as many applications that people think are transformational, then it starts to go through a winter.
You, for example, I imagine would be just as bullish in an AI winter as in an AI spring or summer. So when that happens, do you just kind of roll your eyes and get back to work? Or how do you ignore the hype cycles? How do you view them?
I mean, I think that it's don't waste opportunities, right? So if it's a hype cycle, enjoy it. If it's a winter, yeah, get to work.
There is a little bit of a freeing component to a winter where it's like, oh, I can work now without the attention of the people who maybe don't understand the space.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, and a part of the reason I was excited to bring you on is because a lot of my guests work internally at companies. And so they have a very clear view of how their business is operating and bringing some of this tech to market. But you're in a unique position because you get to speak with lots of companies. You get to speak with lots of founders who are bringing AI tech to market. And so I feel like that probably gives you a more wide-ranging view of the space than most. So I'm curious to learn a little bit about how you were evaluating early stage companies. I'm sure you were pitched a lot, and even when you're not pitched, you were tuning in to know who is out there and what they're making. So what are the kind of things you listen for when you're evaluating or just taking an interest in an early stage AI company?
I listen to some of the very basic things that other investors would look at in any company. Are the founders knowledgeable about their area? Are they excited about the problem they're trying to solve? Do they have personal knowledge about the problem they're trying to solve? And, kind of how committed are they to solving the problem? Because every company is going to go through ups and downs. And so if it's something that you're a bit of a tourist about rather than really committed, then in the downs, then I worry that people will not have perseverance through those downtimes.
How would you assess whether someone was a tourist or if they were really committed?
Actually, when you ask them stories of how they came to solve this problem, when they first noticed this problem, a lot of people will say, "Well, at work, I had to solve this problem over and over again, and so I am now writing an AI engine plus integrating with a workflow in order to solve this problem for everyone." I think that's kind of a typical example where that someone like really understands the issue and they've already had to solve it kind of a few times at a few different companies, and so they're really kind of excited to bring their ideas to the world.
In that case, is it less important that they have a background in AI or machine learning and more that they've really struggled with a problem? Because I fear that sometimes AI is sort of a magic wand that people wave over something. Like, is this really an appropriate application of technology? I guess that's my question. How do you tell, like, even if someone has intimately struggled with a problem, that the right answer is AI and that they're the person to do it?
Yeah, I agree. I think that we're okay if it is something that solves a problem that doesn't use AI, but in general, our investments are problems where, AI is the right answer and we actually feel that people have a good handle on how to approach the problem.
Right. Makes sense. So I'm curious, given that it can be a bit of a magic wand, do you have thoughts on where the best applications of AI and ML are? Maybe the most opportunity to apply this tech?
Hmm. I have spent a lot of time thinking about that. I think one, that large language models that we're seeing today are moving incredibly fast. I think that it's like the new compute substrate. You had computers, then you had networked computers, you had kind of cloud operating systems, so you could run across many computers. And now you have models that can really understand how to kind of do a lot of things and need more training to do something specific.
So short answer, large language models.
Yeah, I'm very excited about large language models.
Could you tell me more? What specifically has you excited?
I think that if we're going to believe that we're going to eventually get to general AI or towards it, I think that this is actually one of the breakthroughs that we needed. And I'm not sure if you read my 8 Critical Approaches to LLMs blog. But I've actually written 4 different blogs about LLMs. That's how excited I am about them, that talk about various techniques, how to train models with chain of thought reasoning. And so one of them is titled The Next Programming Language is English. And of course, by that, I mean any natural language. I don't actually mean English, but I mean describing to the computer what you want done in a clear fashion is one of the ways to train these large language models. And I think that is going to allow an uplift for anyone to be able to take this new compute fabric and do something with it.
The reason that is so exciting because it democratizes access. It will stay less in the domain of a software engineer.
Yes, correct. I even make a small joke that we'll try not to have too much Schadenfreude when the English major says their essay doesn't compile.
You're welcome to our world, English majors. Fantastic. I'm curious when you say if we should approach AGI. I guess, I mean, big question, but should we, can we, assuming that LLMs are part of it? Where do we stand there?
I mean, LLMs, when you think about them in one case, it is like an essay reformatting of search results. When you ask it a question, it does give you an essay, and you can think of it as an essay that reads and reformats search results. So in that way, I think some people say, well, it's not that much closer to AI if you view it that way. But when you view it as a building block that you can instruct on how to do tasks, I think we're a little bit closer. So, I was in John McCarthy and Carolyn Talcott's research group at Stanford, and one of his really, really early papers was called The Advice Taker. And in The Advice Taker, you teach a machine how to do things. And so I find the chain of thought reasoning approach to be, really harkens back to that idea.
I want to ask you a kind of nuanced question, and it's okay
Sure.
if it's too squishy or nebulous to get into. But we are, in the case of like English as the next programming language, and we now know what you mean by that, not specifically English, but communication, really, human communication. Does that limit machines to speak the way we do? If you think of the way communication evolves through our brains and this like speech as an example, or just using symbols for real world things we agree upon in the physical universe around us, do we limit machines by teaching them to speak the way we speak?
I think that's an interesting idea, because another thing that machines are doing is they're learning APIs all the time. So, they're learning how to call databases. And, you can think of your app Safeway that says, are your prescriptions ready, is really a database call. And so I think that these models are learning about database calls. And so you can imagine that pretty soon databases will know how to call each other and to be able to do more complicated tasks without the speech in the middle.
Could you give an example? The Safeway pharmacy one is a great one. What would be an example of a more complicated task?
I'd say one of the tasks that I talk about is, imagine you've been in a car accident and you have your car accident report, and you have maybe a witness report, and you have the other person who was involved in the report, and maybe there's a police report, and you have to collate all that information into let's say, an insurance adjuster report. So all of that text goes in, but other things go in as well, other modalities. Perhaps there was a traffic camera. Perhaps the insurance gave you an app and you had to take pictures of your car. So as you're taking pictures of your car, there's another AI model that says, here's the stuff that's fresh from the accident. That ding on your passenger door, that's not from this accident.
Right. Yeah.
You were hoping to get that door repaired, And so like really kind of synthesizing, putting all that text together, the visual models together, and then coming up with a report. But at the end of the day, I think it is also going to have to call the database and say, how much is a bumper in Santa Clara County, California? And I think, learning how to synthesize the information, the visual information, call the database in order to generate that report, I think that's possible.
The insurance example is a really good one because when you start considering all of the modalities, all the various data sources at play, and then remember that it's passed through the filter of human judgment often, probably less and less, but it is ripe for bias in that way. And a lot of insurance claims in particular, like they may be made based on other things that had nothing to do with the specifics of a collision, right? Like, for example, your age, your gender, where you live in the world, those kind of things. So I'm curious where you draw a circle around quality AI, putting up some guardrails to make sure that while we're training machines to do really complex tasks, that they're doing it in such a way that is fair.
Yeah, I think most of the things that I've contemplated definitely have a human in the loop. I see this as helping enable work, helping people to focus on like the most complicated cases, helping to review cases easier. There's real issues with getting enough people to be insurance adjusters or getting enough people to be bookkeepers. And so I think this kind of ready now AI that can help do a task and have humans kind of up level, what's happening with those tasks is where we're going.
So human in the loop is essential. We are as much hay is made over automating away human labor. You still see this need for human involvement.
I do. Yeah.
What else in addition to human in the loop would you prescribe for folks who are out there and they're developing their own AI technologies and they want to make sure that their organizations are prioritizing a meaningful bias-free approach? What are some things they can think about to ensure that's the case?
I mean, obviously it starts with the data set. If your data set does not cover all the cases that you're going to see in real life, then you're going to have some holes in your reasoning. And that's going to wind up having some bias in the final model. And so really paying attention to what's the application, what are the, sort of like writing a program. So people think, oh, it's going to be so much easier. Well, in writing a program, you have all the if statements for all the things that could happen. Well, here you need like all the data for the things that are going to happen.
This is maybe an elementary question, but how do you know you've collected enough edge cases? How do you know that you have, like, how do you know what the number of cases out there are so that you can get enough data to cover them?
I think if you have human in the loop, what you'll see is if the system has a recommendation, it might have very low confidence in its recommendation. And that points to the fact that you don't have the right data. And so that can point you to collecting data in the right area.
Is that always what you think if you see a low confidence number there? That's a data issue.
Usually, yeah. That's what I think of first, yeah.
Whether the amount of data or that it's been annotated or cleaned properly, those sorts of things.
I think that preparing the data, having the data, those are boring tasks that have to be done.
Boring but essential.
Yes.
Whose job is that?
Yeah, I think that's interesting because sometimes, if an AI company is selling into an enterprise, there's this, what I call the big AI myth, which is the data is just sitting around and it's waiting for someone to do ML on top of it. Or it's waiting around for you to use that data to fine tune an LLM. I mean, sometimes maybe you haven't saved the right data or you haven't cleaned the data, or like we just talked about, you have holes in your data. So really the idea that all the data is there and it's just ready for your needs is kind of a myth. So you have to really say, what is it that I want to predict? And then do I have the right data to predict it? Rather than, I'm sure I have the right data. What could go wrong?
What could go wrong? Oh,
Yeah.
only just about a million things, surely.
Yeah. A countable number, though.
Right, right. When I ask whose job it is, the answer is anyone who cares about this being done properly, right? It's not like, oh, well, you better hire a machine learning engineer, you better hire a better data science team, or like, oh, I don't know about that. I'm not the data guy. It's like we're all data guys at this point. Is that kind of what you're saying?
I am saying that we're all data guys, but also what is the product you're trying to make and what problem are you trying to solve? And so if you know that, then you can go back and see, do you have the right data to solve that problem? Do you have the right data to make those predictions for the tool you're trying to build?
Right, right. That makes sense. And I'm curious where you kind of come down on some of the doom and gloom headlines. We know how you feel about hype cycles and AI winter, but when you hear some of the sensational stuff that we're economizing away human jobs, or that an AI is going to 3D print the singularity in someone's backyard, I don't know how silly it gets. But what do you think of some of that sensationalism, and is it reasonable to be fearful? I guess is my question.
I think when you think about the number of lines of code in your editor, pick your favorite word processor of choice. There's a lot of lines of code. There are a lot of decisions made. Nobody thinks their editor is going to all of a sudden become self-aware, but but we are entering a place where we already entered a place where a search engine seems to know a lot of things because it has indexed a lot of the web. Large language models have used a lot of the web in order to generate sentences which explain things. And all of a sudden, it seems sentient. I think if you think of it as a reformatting of search results, it's a lot less scary.
Yeah, when you crack the hood and it's still just lines of code, for example, it's like, okay, maybe it's not time for the rise of the machines yet.
Yeah, I have a friend who jokes around how to stop a robot army. You shut the door because a lot of robots can't open doorknobs. So
Yeah, it's that simple. Or unplug it, or get a water
yeah.
gun. I don't know. So, and I do want to ask a little bit about about Gradient and your approach over there. And I want to know what gets you excited when it's time to support new companies. And I guess I want to know, half in a this aligns with Gradient's strategy
Hmm.
for investment, and half just like for you personally.
Hmm.
You are this curious person. You have been around the block a couple times when it comes to AI, and you have a love and excitement for this space. So weighing those two factors, what are the kind of things that get you excited and that get you fired up about being a part of a company's early story?
I think, we do fund people from their earliest stages. We funded Labelbox when they were 3 people. And I think people's attachment to the problems, their passion for the space, me feeling like they're solving an important problem that is, both important and timely. Is this the right time? Why wasn't this done earlier? Why shouldn't it be done later? And, are they the right people to do it? Goes more to their excitement, passion, and commitment rather than do they know everything they need to know. Because I will say that we fund entrepreneurs of all ages, and no matter what age people are, we kind of know they're winging it. I mean, all entrepreneurs are like, I got this. I really fooled them. I know everything. No, I mean, we know you're winging it, and that's good. Yeah.
That would be freeing if I were in a position to be raising money. It's like, oh, they know that I'm kind of making some of this up as I go along, because that's what entrepreneurship is, right? Like
Exactly.
if you're
Yeah,
solving a well-defined problem, then how interesting can that space be, right?
exactly.
Well, Anna, before I let you go here, I want to ask you to bestow some wisdom upon the folks out there in podcast land. Having worked in academia and participated in lots of fantastic research, having been at large companies, having founded them yourself, what advice would you give to the folks out there forging a career in the AI and ML space?
Hmm. I'd say that the space is really evolving rapidly. I used to see people graduate from graduate school or undergrad and feel like that's it. I know everything. I'm ready to go apply what I know and take on the world or whatever. I see right now a really important thing to do is to stay abreast of modern technology. And I think that's a kind of big change.
Stay curious.
Stay curious. Yeah. Lifelong learners. Yeah.
I love it. This has been fascinating chatting with you, and we are creeping up on optimal podcast length here. So at this point, I would just say thank you so much for joining me. I have absolutely loved learning from you today.
All right. Thank you so much. Take care.
How AI Happens is brought to you by Sama. Sama provides accurate data for ambitious AI. Specializing in image, video, and sensor data annotation and validation for machine learning algorithms in industries such as transportation, retail, e-commerce, media, medtech, robotics, and agriculture. For more information, head to sama.com.